Do you often find yourself eating the same boring meals day after day, but you crave a little more variety? Well, the world is rich with marvellous cuisine, and I'm going to find out, can we use kitchen gadgets to easily make international cuisine at home? We're going to be looking at how the gadgets work and how well the food turns out. And I'm going to be visiting 7 countries altogether. We're starting here in the UK. We've got some delicious foods here like fish and chips, steak and ale pie, Bakewell tart, and a full English breakfast. But check this out, it's called Lazy Man Pan. And it's this huge frying pan with separate compartments. So let's see just how well this pan works for making our fry up. Here it is. The middle compartment's got this griddle for cooking the meat. There's this bobbly section, and recesses for cooking eggs. After giving it a quick wash and a dry, it's ready to use. I sat it on the hob and turned the gas on to a low heat, and even though it's non-stick, I am going to give it a light coating of oil. Then I placed a couple of sausages on the griddle bit to start cooking them, and I'm taking a tomato, chopping it in half, and cooking that too. As with all cooking, an English fried breakfast is all down to timing, and while those are slowly cooking, I chopped up some mushrooms. I'm going to try cooking exactly what they show on the picture. So we've got sausages, bacon, eggs, beans, tomatoes and mushrooms. But a full English breakfast can include other things too, like black pudding, hash browns, and even fried bread. So after a few minutes, I turned the sausages and the tomatoes, and we'll start cooking the other ingredients. I'm filling up this section with baked beans. I'm adding a knob of butter in this section next to the tomatoes, and filling it up with the mushrooms. A couple of rashers of bacon here in the middle, and finally the eggs, one in here and one this side. They haven't really shaped to the round indentation in the pan. They've just gone everywhere. I also found that because of the length of the pan, it wasn't cooking the egg properly, so I had to reposition the pan slightly to distribute the heat. And after a few minutes, everything is cooking nicely. The mushrooms and tomatoes look great. So does the meat. The beans are simmering away, but it would be nice if the dividers between the sections were a little bit higher so we could fit more in. But it's looking great. And just before you serve, you can start making the toast. Then start plating up. The centre compartment is easily big enough to cook enough meat for 2 people, and it's great having 2 compartments for eggs, but because of the low height of the dividers, you can't cook all that many mushrooms or beans, probably not enough to split 2 ways. But serve it up with your freshly buttered toast and a steaming cup of tea, and there we go, a full English breakfast. The foods come out perfectly. And the pan? I did enjoy using it. There were a couple of issues like heat distribution and the compartment size being a little bit small if you want to make enough food for 2 people. But now we're going to head to China. Chinese cuisine is rich in variety, often using lots of vegetables, rice, noodles, steamed buns, meats, and lots of sauces and soups. And today I'm going to try using this gadget to make dumplings. The idea is we put our dough in here, it comes with a little spatula, and this piece which clips in the back, so we can hang it up for storage. So I'm going to try making a Chinese pork and cabbage dumpling. I mixed in some finely cut spring onions, chopped up some cabbage, added that in, and I also added some ginger, garlic, and seasoning. I rolled my dough out into a long uniform sausage, then sliced off a piece about an inch long, shaped it into a ball, and sat it in the recess. Now let's give it a go. So I brought the press down and gave it a good push, lifted it back up, and that's worked pretty well. It is a little bit thick maybe, and when I placed it onto the folder, it was a bit too small still. So I put it back under the press and gave it a good push down. I pushed down directly over the top this time and added a bit of weight. And there we are, it's definitely a bit bigger. And now it's fitting in perfectly. So, using my little spatula, I took a scoop of the filling and placed it onto the wrapper. Now, I don't want to overfill it in case it squidges out, so I actually removed a little. And let's see how well it works. So I folded it over and gave it a gentle squeeze. Then I opened it up and wow, check that out. That looks amazing. I'm seriously impressed with that. It looks so uniform and neat. And it's definitely pinched it together and sealed it, so on I went and I made a load more. It's actually a really fun process, but this machine really is quite budget, and it does feel quite plasticky and weak, so I'm taking it steady. But for me, I've got to say it's been working really well. Now check this out, I've overfilled it. You can see the filling is squished out, but if I pull away that excess, that looks alright, I should be able to use that. And once I'd made a load of them, they're ready to cook. You could boil them or steam them, but I'm going to pan fry them in a little bit of oil until they're golden brown and a little bit crispy on the bottom. Then pour in some water, place the lid on, and leave them to steam. And after about 10 minutes, when the water had all evaporated, mine were ready to serve. Now, unfortunately, I realised I'm right out of chopsticks, so I had to use a fork. but dip them in your favourite sauce, and oh yeah, that really does taste amazing. I'll definitely be making these again. The gadget did work well for me, although it does feel very thin plastic, so I'm not sure how durable it is, and how long it's going to last. But now, it's time to head over to Spain. If you're enjoying this video, please do give it a like and subscribe. And if you want to buy any of the gadgets, there's links in the description. Now, we're not making paella, I'm actually going to try making churros with this gadget. It's boxed up as a meat grinder, but the advert also shows you can use it for making churros and even homemade sausages. So let's take a look. Here's the main part of the device, and there's a handful of attachments too. Open it up and there's a large hopper at the top. There's this dial on the side, which activates this suction cup on the base. And this part unscrews with a reverse thread to give us access to all the gubbins in here. Check out that helix. We've also got parts like this pushing plunger, this handle, this extrusion nozzle for making the sausages, and this part with a sliding plate for various designs and shapes. So after giving it all a good wash, I made up some churro dough. It's a mix of water, butter, flour, a little sugar, and then finally we need to break an egg or two in and beat it into a silky smooth consistency. Now it's nice and clean, it's ready to assemble the device. This little collar slides over the helix, then it's ready to slide back up into the hopper. The handle fits inside the end here and screws on to hold it in place. On this end we need to fit this attachment and hold it in place with a reverse thread collar. Then we can slide in the shape selector. There's all sorts of designs you can use, but for churros, I'm going to be using the star shape. Next, sit it down on the edge of the work surface and use the knob to stick it down firmly. Wow, that really is strong. Now if I turn the handle, you can see the corkscrew working. As it rotates, it's going to push everything up to the front. So let's scoop some mixture into the hopper and turn the handle to see what happens. Okay, so I think you need to push it down a little with the plunger while you're turning, and check it out. And once you've got a piece a few inches long, just cut it off, then carefully drop it into some hot oil to cook. Oh dear, it bent around. But I carried on extruding some out, and cutting, and carefully dropping them into the hot oil. Keep going, the gadget's pretty easy to use and it seems to be working quite well, and once you've done a load, leave them to cook for a few minutes. Then when they're golden brown, use a skimmer to take them out and sit them on some kitchen roll. And once they're cool enough to touch, you can roll them in some sugar and cinnamon to give them a coating. There we are, delicious churros. They have lost a little bit of their star-shaped definition, but to be honest, I'm really happy with them and they taste amazing. I did find this gadget a little cumbersome to use though for this. Cleaning it's a bit of a pain, and next time I make churros, I think I'll just use a piping bag. But if you'd like to see me try using it to make some homemade sausages, do let me know in the comments. Next we're heading over to Sweden, and I'm going to try making some Swedish meatballs. I bought this meatball making scoop. It cost $12.99. It's this bizarre looking stainless steel contraption made up of 3 channels. And to be fair, it feels really solid and well made. And it comes with this little concaved cutting paddle to help form the meatballs. It's shaped to fit down into the channels, and the idea is you fill the whole thing with meat, then cut it and scoop it off to make instant balls. So let's give it a go. I made a Swedish meatball mix with pork and beef, onion, breadcrumbs, some allspice, nutmeg, seasoning, and an egg. Then, after giving it a thorough mix, we've got something that looks like this. So let's try the gadget. I'm using a spoon to fill each channel with the meat, and it's not actually that easy to do. The meat's obviously a really thick consistency, and you've got to kind of squeeze it and push it down into the channels. But once it was full and nice and uniform, it looks like this. So we're ready to start forming the meatballs. I'm resting it on a plate, then I push the paddle down into the meat to cut through it, and slid them forward onto the plate. Check that out. Let's go again. There's 6, 9, and for the last 3, I'm turning the paddle around backwards to use the concaved section to try and form them a little bit more like a ball. And there we go. Well, that definitely was quite quick once we'd filled up the scoop. First impressions are, well, they're not really round. If we take a closer look, the only rounded side is the side that was sat in the channel. But I'm not really sure that matters, and we'll see how they look when they're cooked. But first I want to try out these meatball shaping tongs. Let's see if these work any better. They feel nice and strong, and they come in 2 different sizes. Wow, these really are big, but we're going to try out the smaller ones. So I dived straight in and tried grabbing some in the tongs, and oh no, look at that, it's all kind of stuck. Give it a little shake and it's looking better. I kept squeezing and shaping it, and it is looking more round. So I'm going to drop that one on this plate here and make a load more. It is a bit fiddly, but I found using a spoon to help scrape off the excess works quite well. And these are actually looking quite good. And if you compare them to the other ones, you can definitely tell which ones came from which gadget. But let's see how they look when they're cooked. To start with, I'm frying them all off in a little oil to brown them. They all seem to hold together fine when I'm turning them. And, they're starting to look and smell nice. And once they'd browned all the way around, the difference in shape was getting less noticeable. The next step is to transfer them onto a baking tray. I still kept them separate, with the ones from the scoop staying on the right-hand side. I placed them in the oven, and while they're cooking through, we need to make the sauce. I placed some butter in a pan, together with all those lovely meat juices. Let that melt down. Then I added in some flour, stirred it in, and poured over some hot beef stock. Bring it up to temperature, and add some more if you need to. Then I added some soya sauce, mustard, and cream. Give it a good stir to combine it all, and let it simmer for a few minutes. And add any seasoning you like. And once the meatballs are ready, you can see there's not really much difference in their appearance anymore. So add them to the pan. They're looking and smelling great. And when they're all sat in, I'm sprinkling over some fresh chopped parsley. And there we are, ready to serve. It's such a delicious dish, you've got to try it. But will I be using these gadgets again? Well, to be honest, I think once you've already got your hands covered in meat from making the mix, you may as well just shape the balls manually with your hands. But what do you think? Have you tried making meatballs? How do you do it? Let me know in the comments. Next stop, we're heading to Japan. And I'm not making sushi today. No, I'm going to try making some matcha tea. It's a green tea which boasts numerous health benefits, and there's a bit of ceremony to making it. I bought this gift set, which should have everything we need. Open it up. There's a tea cloth, a handbook, and all the breakable pieces are neatly packaged. Here's the matcha bowl for making it in, with a little pouring spout on the side. I bought this set in light grey, but you can get it in various different colours and designs. It comes with 2 of these little cups, which look and feel really nice. This bamboo matcha whisk, together with this little whisk holder. Check that out, it just sits over the top. A tea powder sifter, and a tea scoop. The handbook's nice and comprehensive with lots of information and clear detailed instructions for how to make it. So the first thing to do is place the sifter on top of the bowl and use our bamboo scoop to pick up about half a teaspoon of tea. It's a very fine green powder and we need to drop it into the sieve and sift it through with our scoop to prevent any clumps. Next we need to add about 600 millilitres of hot water, then use our bamboo whisk to give it a vigorous mix. We want to create a nice frothy foam on top. It should take about 10 to 20 seconds. Look at that. Then slowly add some more hot water. And it's ready to serve. Check out that rich, deep green colour. And there we go, 2 cups of matcha tea. Oh wow, that's delicious. Have you tried it? What do you think? Next stop on our adventure is Italy. We're not making pizza, we're actually going to try using this machine to make our own pasta. It comes well packaged in this nice box. Inside we've got the instructions on the top, and these must be the components of the machine. Here's the main body of the device. It's a really slick design, it feels heavy and really well made. And this part of the machine is going to roll out our pasta dough into nice thin sheets. Now wrapped up inside this cardboard, we've got the cutting deck. Check this out. It looks vicious. You wouldn't want to get your finger caught in there. The top section here is for making spaghetti, and the bottom section is for making fettuccine. It also comes with this handle, and this G-clamp to firmly mount it on your work surface. The instructions give a step-by-step guide on how to assemble it, and a recipe for making the pasta dough. So let's give it a go. I made my own dough, which is a flour and egg mix. I started combining it while it's all in a bowl. Then when it was more together, I kneaded it on the work surface with some flour. And after a few more minutes, it was looking really good. So I left it to rest and started assembling the machine. You need to sit it on the edge of the work surface, then insert the G-clamp here in the hole at the bottom and clamp it down. Make sure it's tight. Next we need to insert the handle here in the hole on the side, and rotating this spins the rollers inside. On the other side here, there's a dial, and this is used to set the distance between the 2 rollers for rolling the dough out into different thicknesses. You need to start on the maximum gap, so let's give it a go. I took half of the dough, sat it on top of the rollers, and started turning the handle. Wow, check that out, that's rolling out beautifully, and I'm kind of pulling it forward a little with my hand. So, once you've done the first pass, close the rollers slightly, and I'm feeding it through again. Okay, this gets a little bit more complicated because you need to kind of feed it into the machine and pull it through from the other side so it doesn't all pile up. But it actually goes through itself. Check that out, that's amazing. Look how long that is from that small ball of dough we started with. I think it's going to be too difficult to handle like this, so I cut it in half, and we'll feed each piece through separately. I closed the rollers down a little bit more, and gave them another pass. Oh blimey, check that out, it's just so thin and delicate. Lovely and uniform though, and look how long it is. I'm cutting it in half one more time. And let's try making some spaghetti. So we need to attach the cutting section. This piece feels so solid. It's well designed with these two little lugs that slide down into the device to hold it firmly in place. Next, swap the handle over into the spaghetti cutter, and once that's fitted, we're ready to start feeding in the pasta sheet. So I loaded it in from the top and started turning the handle. And hey, check that out, it's working! I kept turning the handle and feeding it through, and there we go. There's a little bit stuck here. I'll just pull that bit off. Well, there we are, homemade spaghetti. It does look a little bit stuck together though, so I'm going to give it a dusting of flour. And even though I've just done that, it is still sticking and it's a bit stodgy and all clumped up. I think I made a mistake. I should have coated it in flour earlier. So this time I'm giving these pieces a light dusting of flour on both sides, and let's give it another go. So I fed it into the top of the machine, and hey, wow, look at that. That's looking way better. That's kind of mesmerizing, watching that swing back and forward. Homemade spaghetti. How exciting is this? So I carried on turning the handle and fed it all through. And this time it's looking perfect. It's not stuck together at all. Check that out. Beautiful fresh spaghetti. Pretty cool, huh? And that's so amazing, feeding it through the machine and watching it come out like that. You can just drape it over your hand and it's ready for cooking. But I want to try making some fettuccine. So I swapped the handle over to the other cutter, took a piece of the dough and started feeding it through. I love the way it just comes out like that. Check that out. It's kind of folding itself up into a pile. I'll move that to the side and put through the other pieces. Now this stuff is a lot wider than spaghetti. The box says it cuts it at 6mm and the spaghetti is 2mm wide. There we go, a big pile of fresh fettuccine. Now I've always called this thickness tagliatelle, but what would you call it? It has done a really good job of giving us a consistent thickness. I'm really impressed. To cook it, I'm sitting it in some hot water and leaving it to simmer for a few minutes. Then I drained it, and it's ready to serve. I added some homemade tomato sauce on top, and garnished it with some nice fresh herbs. And there we are, our homemade pasta dish. That freshly made pasta is just delicious. It's like nothing else, and I've really enjoyed using the maker. Now, what countries should I visit next? And which foods would you like me to try making? Let me know in the comments. And if you'd like to see some more really cool kitchen gadgets, you can click on the link here. Have fun, stay safe, and as always, thanks for watching.